Good evening, Adelaide. Or should I say, good agavening. My name is Salomon, and tonight I'm talking about drinking. No, actually quite the opposite, because I want to show you what's beyond the tequila shot and show you some of the blood, sweat, and research it is that goes into each bottle of tequila and the plant behind it, the agave. I don't know what you're thinking right now, probably thinking science, comedy, and tequila sounds like I have an unfair advantage. Well, please keep in mind I'm a bit handicapped because I'm German. But believe it or not, I was destined to come to Australia and study tequila because my wife's from Adelaide and we've met each other about 10 years ago in Germany where we both studied at the time. And true story, the first night we met, we were both doing tequila shots. And I even found a photograph of the very same party where we met. To be precise, I wasn't doing normal tequila shots, but suicide tequilas. So, if you don't know what it is, it's like a normal shot of tequila with salt and lemon, but you snort the salt, squeeze the lemon in your eyes, drink the tequila, bang your head on the table, and then you look really, really stupid. Lucky for me, my wife was at least kind enough to be impressed by this stupidity. When I looked up through my mild concussion, I couldn't help but fall in love. So today when I'm not drinking, I'm working at the University of Adelaide as a soil scientist. And when I tell people about this, they always say, "Geez, Matt, you must be really grounded." And I am, because I get to spend most of my time improving agriculture and food production. And for the last 3 years specifically, the agave plant. What I love about this plant is that it can be converted into so many more things than just bad life decisions. Its sugars and fibers are really versatile. You can turn it into biofuels and bioplastics. And here I am about 3 years ago, just doing regular lab work, when I got a call from Professor Rachel Burton asking me about my liver functioning. Apparently HR needed to confirm that I could survive the job. From years of drinking tequila, I knew this project might not end well, but I also knew from years of experience that it wouldn't stop me doing it. So anyway, I signed up for the job, and the project is funded through what's called a linkage grant, which connects industry people with scientists to help them with the product and help scientists with the science. In our case, the industry partner is Top Shelf International, and they had the grand vision to make real Australian tequila. But first, they had to find a place where they could grow all the agave plants. And after hours of brainstorming, probably a bit too much tequila and a playlist stuck on Men at Work, they probably ended up seeing things a bit upside down. What they ended up doing was looking at the world map, specifically Jalisco, Mexico, which is the world's most famous state for tequila production, and they just mirrored it at the equator. So they cross-sectioned it with Adelaide, with Australia, and arrived in Early Beach, of all the places. So that was settled, and they took on the ambitious task of planting 300 hectares of agave plants, and they built this really fancy distillery and created this really cool brand called Active Treason. There was still one problem though, the milling stone. You see, the Mexicans are very smart people, and they came up with this traditional method to juice the fibrous agave plant, which is a donkey pulling a stone which crushes the plant. Being the forward-thinking scientists that we are, we ran a few cost-benefit scenarios to see if we can find a better solution for Australia. So model number 1, replacing the donkey with an electric engine. Already solid improvement, but lacking a bit of flavor. Model number 2, a Queenslander on a motorbike. Definitely more horsepower, but questionable safety. And finally, our big eureka moment, 5 backpackers pulling on a road. A really low cost and sustainable solution. And if I wouldn't have met my wife, I wouldn't be in Adelaide. I'd be one of those guys.
And you were.
Now, of course, I'm just joking. We ditched the milling stone altogether and just settled on a wine press. I know, boring but efficient, just like us Germans. So, as a soil scientist, my own work involved a lot of working with the soil, treating the soil to squeeze the most out of the agave plant. And it didn't take me long to realize that agave had exactly the same plan, squeezing the most out of me. So, what I realized is agave is a pretty badass plant. It hurt me mentally and physically. Physically, because of its razor blade leaves and its pointy tips. And here we are in northern Queensland wearing long sleeves and knife-resistant gloves just to protect ourselves. No kidding, some workers actually had to go to hospital for minor surgery, and it turns out agave is the apex predator, and it will find a way to injure you. And it gets even worse. Just the bare skin contact gives you this horrible rash because the plant is packed with these crystals made from calcium oxalate. I can tell you from experience it's not to protect them from Germans with questionable intelligence, rather from pests and diseases. They probably take one bite and say, yeah, nah mate, we're good. However, if you really want to impress your future wife, just mix it with avocado and call it a suicide toast. So these are just a few examples of the physical pains, but the emotional pain dug way deeper and has mostly to do with my research. One of the first research questions we had was to increase the sugar concentration in the agave plant, because after all, we're working with a tequila producer, and more sugar means more alcohol. So being a typical German, I was immediately on the task, and we set up this field trial site with lots of different treatments, and what did we find? Nothing. Agave is so bad, it just doesn't care. The sugar remained exactly the same between all treatments and all plant stages. And in fact, nobody had ever reported on agave sugar before, but thanks to our research, we now know it's about 70%. And another 30% razor blades. So that was a bit of a bummer, but it gets better because we had this great idea at the start of the experiment to develop a handheld device that would tell us the plant sugar from a simple leaf measurement. So what looks like a bogan version of Bill Murray playing Ghostbuster is actually me holding a radio spectrometer. So this device sends light into the leaves and measures whatever is reflected back. And some of these wavelengths and amplitudes correlate with sugar concentration. And what did we find? Exactly. We don't need this because the sugar concentration stays the same all the time. So let's have a bit of an agave break and look at the tequila side of things. Because tequila is not just your typical 2am, this seems like a really good idea drink. No, it can be a really refined and enjoyable experience. And to learn more about what consumers actually want, my colleague Janita conducted a taste testing study because somehow, I don't know, I wasn't seen trustworthy enough. Weird, right? So she got 13 bottles of tequila and 45 taste testers, and each tester got 20 mils of tequila. I'll do the math for you. That's about a schooner of tequila per person. So HR were on our backs again. We had to break it up in multiple sections. And then the testers had to answer a series of questions. On a scale of 1 to 5, how do you rate this tequila? Floor cleaner? Another one, please. Bin juice or liquid gold? What describes the aftertaste? Messaging my ex, starting a mariachi band, or booking a flight to Mexico. Now, of course, I'm just joking again, and here are some of the actual questions that were asked. Because creating a new spirit is more than just chucking things into a barrel and hoping for the best. It's about knowing what consumers actually want and trying to replicate it to a certain degree. So let's wrap it up. It only took us hundreds of soil samples, thousands of plant readings, and a few tropical hangovers in Early Beach to realize this plant can grow anywhere. It would even thrive in a 16-year-old's bedroom. This makes me a bit sad because as a researcher, I like to report about all the novel and exciting things that we discover, rather than just say, yep, it's a succulent. Just stick it into the ground and it'll figure itself out. But at the same time, that's really exciting because Australia is full of ground. And while tequila research is of course a noble and respectable cause, we all need to remember that this plant's potential goes way beyond just making us better dancers at weddings. So this baddest plant can be turned into anything, like I said, biofuels, bioplastics, and even bad life decisions that in my case led to a happy marriage. Thank you. And